Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Randi Thompson, sitting in for Sam Shad. We'll be talking today with Paul Enos, the CEO of Nevada Trucking, and also Angie Taylor, the president of the Washoe County School Board of Trustees. Coming up on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer, it really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice, I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
Hello, is this D&D Roofing?
Yes, it is. How may I help you?
You did such a great job on my roof. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner.
Oh, can I speak to your supervisor?
Sure.
How may I help you?
I love your work. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner. We're all owners. Well, that's why at D&D we work so hard to keep your home safe and sound.
Oh, no wonder.
D&D Roofing and Sheet Metal. Local, employee-owned, here for you.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And we're back at Nevada Newsmakers, and I'm joined again by Paul Enos. We had a conversation yesterday that aired yesterday, and I want to just kind of have a little bit of the finish up, I guess, our conversation.
Sure. Always happy to talk to you, Randi.
I appreciate that, Paul. So you penned a op-ed in the Nevada Independent late last month, talking about the gas tax holiday, and you really went after the administration on really saying it's just not going to work. So what is your read on that?
It's definitely not going to work here in Nevada, because unless the governor or the legislature call themselves into a special session to amend a law that was passed all the way back in 1974, Nevadans aren't going to pay a penny less if this federal gas tax holiday goes into effect, because I actually think it's good public policy. We do want to pay for our roads. That is something that government tends to do fairly well, is infrastructure. Not always, but for the most part. So that money would just go to the state instead of the federal government. You know, when I look at one of the rationales for a federal government and a stronger federal government, and Founding Fathers had the same rationale all the way back in 1789. It's to promote interstate commerce. It was to promote things like post roads, to be able to get communication back and forth through the towns and villages in the 18th century. Interstate commerce today is tremendously more complex. We are connected to places all over the world by our ports, our airports, our roads, our highways. So, it's a place where I really don't want to see the lion's share of what pays for that infrastructure just be fluttered away. We're looking at a $10 billion hit, $10 billion. That is not insubstantial. So when I see that, Randi, I say, these people aren't very serious. Once again, we have energy prices going up because we have a shortage of energy supply. That's the deal. And so what's the administration trying to do? They're trying to decrease the demand. They're trying to decrease the demand, really, that the Fed's doing this by, trying to put the economy on ice. And they very well may knock us into a recession, which isn't going to be pretty for anybody.
Well, we're taping this on the July 6th, and the price of oil actually went down to $96 a barrel.
But guess what?
Because we're seeing the demand decline.
$96 is still expensive.
Yeah,
that is still expensive oil. That's not cheap oil.
Well, remember, it was negative $30 during COVID when there was no demand. So
absolutely. But once again, we need to get serious about our energy policy in this country and open up that domestic production.
Yep, that's what we're really pushing for. So you guys put out a press release this week endorsing Sheriff Lombardo for governor. Tell us about that.
So the Board of the Nevada Trucking Association actually met in my hometown of Elko the day after the primary, and we've had a lot of conversations with all the gubernatorial candidates. Every time we met with Sheriff Lombardo, we liked him more and more and more. We do believe he does have the mettle and the strength to be able to be a strong and smart and competent executive leader in this state. We appreciate his openness with us, and really wanting to talk about what is impacting our industry. So we've had great conversations with him. We feel very comfortable endorsing him, and we do think his 34 years of experience in Clark County, including running a 6,000 person agency down in Clark County, does show that he has the chops to be able to do this job and do it well.
Some are saying that because he doesn't have any experience at the state level, because he doesn't have experience in the business sector, that he's really just coming from a law enforcement background. He doesn't really know all about what it takes to manage a state.
Well, I will say
that?
I mean, managing an agency of 6,000 people, it's a pretty good crucible to put somebody in to test them and see how well they do. And you could look at our current governor who didn't have that executive experience, serving on the Clark County Commission. So I do think that Sheriff Lombardo does come with that. It's not going to be on-the-job training. And there's a number of things we've talked to him about, from tax policy to environmental policy to how we approach regulations in this state, how we approach the independent contractor process. And we are very comfortable with the sheriff's views and positions that are coming from a national level, that aren't the Washington D.C. talking points, but that are actually going to work for our state, which is extremely diverse. And when you're down in Clark County and you're running the largest law enforcement agency down there, you do have a pretty keen understanding of what is going on, of what drives business, of what drives behavior, and we think that Sheriff Lombardo absolutely can meet that test if we're fortunate enough to have him elected governor in November.
Well, it's going to be an interesting fall, no doubt.
Always is, Randy.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming back and chatting with me, and we'll be right back after this.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer. It really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your air conditioner breaks down today. We fix it today. Why sweat for days while your air is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get cool again? For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 or see us online at nevadaheating.com.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful. Brian Culpa Photography was born in the rolling hills of Massachusetts, and now he can help you experience the stunning beauty of Nevada in a whole new way through the power of flight. Flying has always been a passion for Brian, and at Brian Culpa Photography, he can make your imagination soar. Brian has the creative mind and tools to tell your unique story. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And we're back on Nevada Newsmakers with Angie Taylor, who's a school board president as well as a candidate for the legislature. So good morning, Angie. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Randy. Thank you for letting me do this on Zoom.
You bet. I'm hoping you're feeling better. You tested positive for COVID. You're being a good girl, staying home, but doesn't mean you can't be out there talking to folks, huh?
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the school board. I think you were on what, in 2014? When did you come onto the school board?
Yeah, I got appointed. I made one meeting, the very last meeting in 2014. So I really started in 2015. So that's probably a better way to land it. Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty good start, and then COVID hit, and you had the lockdowns, and then you had parents coming into meetings that were kind of unruly. So just tell me a little bit about how has your tenure been on the school board?
You know, it's very interesting, Randy, because as I started, you may recall, I came in after all of everything that went on around previous superintendent Pedro Martinez. And that was as the aftermath of all of that is when I joined. And then, as you said, just as we kind of settled, we had to work through that, spent most of our time our first year. Then we kind of, I think we've got going to as a little bit of a groove as a board. I mean, certainly not without a challenge here and there. And, we had a trustee that we had to ask to step down with some issues going on his job and so on. But generally, we got to a point where we were kind of moving and doing and learning to, norm storm, all of those things that groups do. And things to a whole nother level.
Oh, well, we just lost your video. Hopefully we can get you back. So yeah, the Pedro Martinez time was a challenge. You definitely had some other issues there, that's for sure. What are you most proud of during your tenure?
I'm going to switch over here because my camera switched for some reason. Really, what I'm most proud of is really that how at this point is really how we got through the pandemic. It's hard for that to not be in the forefront. Two really important things. I think one would be the pandemic. We were one of the largest districts in the country that went back to in-person instruction that fall, which was a really difficult decision to make. That's when the meetings first really began to get long. Teachers were very concerned, certainly understand that. Parents were, we wanted to keep everybody safe. It was tough. I think that the strides that we've made in terms of shootings, all of our middle and elementary schools have single point of entry. Now, which wasn't the case when I first joined the board. We had an outside consultant, come in and really do an analysis on what are those areas that we need to strengthen and improve. And we put fencing around all of the schools, all of those things. It's just based upon where we are right now. Those are the two things that come to the forefront of my mind. And big issues. We still have plenty of challenges. Don't get me wrong. We've made some strides academically. I think there are more for us to make. The way that our students grow. We're one of the leading districts in the country in terms of that, in terms of our career and technical education advances. I'm proud of that. Our parent engagement, involvement, our family involvement, I'm proud of that. There are a lot to be proud of, but not to say that there isn't work to do.
Well, what would you have liked to do better or would have done better? What do you think?
You know what, as I look back, if I take away, if we could, right, those things like that come to the forefront that are really attention getters, I still want us to, I think there are two really important things that I don't know if I can control specifically as a trustee, but our class sizes are still just too large. They're still too large. And that there is a direct relationship between class sizes and academic achievement. I would want to do, I want to make more strides in academic achievement. I think that's a big piece is class sizes. We've done some things for teacher pay. I would kind of say educator pay as a whole. There's more that needs to be done. Our hands are kind of tied a little bit because we just don't fund education that well in the state. As a whole, I think we can do some more with that. So I would do more things, those things that have a direct impact on kids and teachers in the classroom because that relates to academic achievement.
So the challenge of having smaller classrooms is having more teachers, and you've already got a teacher shortage. How do you see? How do you see we could get people back into the classroom? How do we inspire people to come back and teach?
As you know, it is a national teacher shortage, which has been the case for the last 15, 20 years. But I think the things that we can control is one, the environment, right? The culture, I should say, like in the classroom. Smaller classrooms makes it easier for teachers to manage, easier for teachers to have an impact on students. People don't get into education, you know this, Randy. Shoot, people don't get into education for the money. They do it because they want to impact kids, they want to impact lives. And you have a better chance of doing that if you have, it seems like, 3-4 kids don't make a difference, 5-6 kids don't make a difference. But they do. But they do. And 1 or 2 kids can make a difference sometimes, depending upon the situation. So I think creating a better environment for teachers to do what they love to do, to impact kids, that's a part of it. I think obviously teacher pay, sure, a part of it. How we get things, how we continue to do things to keep the classroom safe for students. I mean, for students and teachers, quite frankly. But since we're talking about teachers, for teachers, the culture in the organization, all of those things make a difference. Those things we can impact. I can't impact whether a student decides to study education or business in college, but for those that we have, we want to be able to keep them, and we want to be able to attract them more. And I think you do that. It's multifaceted. So what you do is you focus on the things you can control and you can influence. And I think those are things that we have to continue to work on. These last 2 years for culture, for safety, those things have been incredibly difficult for teachers. I know that. But what are those things we can do to help with that? Then at least you keep those that you have. And now people are saying, hey, I'm feeling good about it. I like where we are. And there are teachers that feel that way. I see that they're trying to do some things to help us with teacher pay. They're trying to do, then that's how you keep people. And then for those people who have that teacher nug in their heart, right, it's easier for them to make that decision to jump back in, or they jump in for the first time.
Well, that's probably the only thing you really can control, and that's a good way to look at it. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back after this.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer. It really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation. This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And we're back with Angie Taylor, who's the president of the school board as well as a candidate for the legislature. So I want to touch a little bit. You talked about the last 2 years. I've followed the school board for years now, and I usually hear the school board people, school board trustees and teachers complain that parents aren't engaged, that they're treating the schools as daycare. And then COVID inspired a lot of parents to start coming to school board meetings. And then you had it sounds like rather hostile situation. How would you have handled those parents better? And how could have those parents been handled? How could those parents have acted better in those rather tough meetings that you had? And how do we get that balance back of allowing parents to be more engaged in their kids' education?
I think that's a really good question, because there is that unique balance. I will say a couple of things. the best formula for student success is family engagement, is parents being involved. And I think when COVID first started, we had a lot of parents, and actually there were more teachers more so than parents, but certainly a lot of parents watching. And there was no answer we could have done to make everybody happy. But 2/3 of the families in our district still decided to keep their kids in day-to-day in-person instruction, and about the other third stayed at home. So there were still plenty of parents that still wanted to go to school, but how do you do that safely? I think when things that began the longer meetings, a big piece of that again was teachers were very concerned, understandably. So workers, how we're going to keep them safe, understandably, because there's so much we didn't know. I think part of when it really kind of got to be a little bit more, those were lengthy. Those were very emotional for people who wanted to be safe. I think when it really got to be a little more unruly, I think is when we got probably for the past about year and a half or so, when really the COVID conversation was around, don't have kids wear masks and so on. Not you're making them go and not be safe, but this thing is just going on too far. And the thing about that is I think it's okay to hear those things. I think it's important for people to share their thoughts, because that's how we learn in it. But I think when you have there were quite a few that were not parents. Because in fact, people get up and say, look, I don't have any kids in the district. I don't even live in this county, but and you have some of that. So then it's not as much about, hey, I care about what's going on with my kid. It's when other issues begin to get involved. I think politics entered into it way more than it should. The school district should not be political. School system should not be political. And so I think you got to find that balance. And then at that point, it really got to be, hey, let's have as much public comment as we can, saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, so we can just disrupt the meeting. And so when we got 4 or 5, 6 hours of public comment at the beginning of the meeting, so then you aren't getting to things that parents are tuning in for, curriculum issues, book issues, building a new school and naming a school, teacher contracts, and we aren't getting to those things until 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they're agendized, then you disenfranchise parents and those who are at home. And so what we did was we took the general public comment period and put it at the end. You can still come, we want to hear your voice, but we got to get to the stuff that's agendized first. And then we get to the things that aren't agendized, and we prove we'll stay till 2 o'clock in the morning. We've done it before. And some folks said, hey, you don't want to hear from parents. And again, I think it was that honestly, that was more the group that were really there to my feeling is that their intention was to disrupt, because I heard them talking about, we're just going to disrupt. We're just going to be here. We're just going to take time. That's not good for the kids. So how do we find that balance? Let's hear your voices. I think I could have done a better job of hearing some voices. But it's really hard to hear when you're yelling at me and calling me out of my name and saying bad things. It's really kind of, I don't hear that well, Randy, when you're personally attacking me. My ears because I'm human, right? My ears don't work that well when I have to get through all of that to get to your point. And so, we started having town halls until we kind of got shut down a little bit with COVID, and then got into the superintendent search and so on. And I shared that at the town hall I had. Most of those people didn't live in my district. Most of them were folks who came and their job was, but they were, we had some good conversations. I said, look, I can't hear you that well when you talk to me like that. I just can't. Yeah. But let's talk about some things. I want to hear it's important. So you got to find that balance. How do you do it respectfully? So I can really hear you, me personally. I could have done a better job of hearing, but I was challenged with that. I got to be honest, I was challenged.
So one of the questions people had or concerns was critical race theory. Are we teaching critical race theory in Washoe County? And what is critical race theory in that sense?
We are not. People have made critical race theory into something that it isn't. Critical race theory is, there it is, a theory. It is a theory that laws in this country were created with a racist slant. And when you go back to the history of our country, racism was what the country was dealing with at that time. There was slavery, there, things that had to do with the civil rights movements and so on. That was a theory that some scholars came up with in the 1970s. Those tenets are not taught in the school district at all. I think there are people that are always going to be uncomfortable with, hey, we have I love this country. I am patriotic to a fault, right? I had COVID, so I didn't get to post on July 4th. I wish I had. First time I ever didn't post. I'm seriously crazy about this country. But I think we have some things in our country that, hey, some things we didn't quite do right? So, hey, let's talk about that, because then we don't repeat that. But the good news in that story is this: we had people that said, "Hey, this isn't how we want to be. Let's get rid of slavery. Let's do Civil Rights Act. Let's do the Voting Rights Act. Let's do things." There are people that said, "Hey, we want to be better as the end of the story is fantastic." I think we can be proud about that, but it doesn't mean we ignore those things where maybe we didn't quite live up to the values that we espouse as a country. And I think it's okay I know the whole story. It doesn't make me hate my country. It makes me love my country, right? And I think it's okay to do that. In fact, I think it's important to do that because no one gets everything right all the time. So let's talk about when we didn't and then what we did to correct it. And I think people are just going to be uncomfortable with that. And there's nothing I can say to make them not be uncomfortable with that. But let's not make it in the critical race theory, because that's not what critical race theory is.
Okay, well, I appreciate you clarifying that, Bet. And we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker, and you've got a lot of convention space and meeting breakout space for people. Tell us about what's available.
Well, we can handle a group up to about 250, and anywhere as small as 10 or 15. So it really depends on what you're looking for, what the customer's looking for. We're open to anything. It's a beautiful drive, and if you live in South Reno, it's probably about 30-35 minutes, so it's real easy to get to. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can watch us anytime live on NevadaNewsmakers.com. Thanks again.